Well, welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's good to be home.
I'm sure it is. Don't get too comfortable. We're leaving tomorrow for a whirlwind trip to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Woo! The final Stanley Cup final. At least
final. That's what we're hoping
for. Not a bad place to see my first hockey game, though. That is crazy.
No, that's awesome. But before we leave, we've got a lot of amazing Kenobi conversation to talk about.
You're feeling a lot better after that series, after that last episode, aren't you?
Let's just say that I don't think that Kenobi and Vader even have to battle again for episode 4 to make sense.
Ooh.
I'll explain it on today's show. We'll also talk about the big moments we need to revisit from Stranger Things seasons 1 through 3 before that big finish. And it's actually, we're going to see if it's possible for Grant Gustin's The Flash to come in to save the DCEU.
It needs saving.
This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was lit.
Well, I mean, I guess at the time of recording, we don't know if it's we'll know when you guys are hearing this if Wednesday will be the final Stanley Cup
we're
final,
hoping.
we don't know
going
right
for
now.
Either way, it couldn't be a final game, but we're hoping that it could be the final game.
Yeah, we're hoping for the sweep. So if they won Monday night, then we're going to the
if
final game of the Stanley Cup Finals.
Since you're in the future, just let us know if they did.
Yeah, just send it
back
to us.
Reply on our Twitter thread or something. On that, welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. The only fan podcast to name a canon Star Wars creature and to be endorsed by the writer-director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson. My computer is
Your mouse
is possessed.
Is its own mind right now.
With that, anyway, we believe that pop culture is the mythology of our generation. That there is a story; it is written on our souls, and these myths speak to that story. And that I probably deserved that after I threw a Vecna image up on the middle of your Stranger Things notes as you were typing them on Google Docs.
Not at all.
Okay,
I can see with Google Docs, I'm able to see when you enter the doc and like where your cursor is and stuff. So I knew you were in there when you posted it. I'm just like,
so we threw. I thought it was anyway. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of our generation. There's a story written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story, and that is why we are looking at how the apparent continuity error in episode 4 was fully resolved in Obi Wan Kenobi Part 5.
Among other continuity errors.
With a throwaway line.
That's right. The things we forgot in Stranger Things seasons 1 through 3 that we need to remember going into the final 2 episodes of the series, or maybe not really.
2 movies.
Did you change it up on me?
I did switch it up a little bit. I want to talk more about Vecna.
You just are obsessed with Vecna.
He's a cool villain. All right.
He actually is a cool villain.
All right. And is there any way that Grant Gustin can replace Ezra Miller as the Flash of the DCEU?
There's a better question. Is there any way Grant Gustin can't replace Ezra Miller?
Oh,
He has to right now.
Interesting. I'm David. I'm the dad.
Hi, Dad.
Wow, that was good. Good job there, Sam.
We're getting too good at it.
Fully prepared. We have to change up the intro a little bit. I'm honored to be joined every week by my 2 amazing sons. BB Nate, go for it.
Yeah, it's never a dull moment for DC fans, good or bad.
It's definitely not.
Always having some going on.
Restore the Ezra verse.
No.
With that.
We can forget Ezra Miller.
Yeah. Sam, what you got going?
Yeah, we might have actually seen Vecna all throughout Stranger Things at this point, not just season 4.
That's a little strange.
What are you talking about, Dad?
Well, Star Wars, because that's what I talked about.
Really?
Anyway, it's in a brilliant move. Deborah Chow and the writers of Obi Wan Kenobi showed that Obi Wan was always the master and Darth Vader the apprentice, even though we may have been missing the power of this for 45 years.
So you're telling me they had this all figured out?
Did.
And people judged it too early?
Maybe even I had a little moment going to the dark side with that. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to the show. We definitely appreciate that. If this is your first time listening to Tatooine Sons, welcome. We try to be a positive force in the Star Wars and Marvel and DC universe, even when sometimes it's not easy to do that because of the way that fans are and we are sometimes, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But yeah, we'd love for you to follow the show on whatever app you're listening to us on. If you're a returning listener, thank you so much. We definitely appreciate that. Let's do this. Let's stop talking about what we're going to talk about and talk about what we're talking about.
Good job.
All right. Thank you very much. Some of the biggest continuity questions that we've had in Obi Wan Kenobi were resolved in Part 5, including the fate of the Grand Inquisitor. But the biggest resolution might have slipped by many fans completely unnoticed.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
Solo can get stabbed straight through, and he can't survive, and Qui-Gon can't survive.
See, he fell like a kilometer.
No, that'll
So
do
if
it.
he stayed on the bridge, he might have survived.
Well, what about Qui-Gon?
Oh, he just did.
Just watch the Star Wars Explained video.
They did.
It was a good video.
Fantastic job.
It was a good
I
video.
actually watched that video after writing my notes, but my theory was the same as Alex, so I feel really smart today. Anyway,
There you go. Good job, Dad.
so the biggest continuity error from my perspective of the entire series, the one that threw me for a loop, sent me to the dark side a little bit, maybe questioning the Force.
You're very negative about
with
it.
that. I wasn't necessarily that negative about it. I just expressed that I had problems with it, and mostly privately I expressed those problems. But anyway, was in Episode 4 when Vader and Kenobi battle each other.
Episode 3. Oh wait, are you talking about Episode 4?
Yeah,
Yeah, come on,
Episode
Nate.
4.
Not
I thought you were
Part
talking
3.
Part 3.
No, see,
Okay.
if I was talking about Part 3, I'd
You
say
would've said
Part
Part
3.
3? Okay,
I'm
got
saying
it.
Episode 4
Understood.
because we're talking about Episode 4. I know my
Understood.
Star Wars.
I know.
I lead the Star Wars segment on this show right now.
I know Star Wars.
All right, there we go. Okay. Anyway, the quote is, as they're getting ready to confront each other, Vader says to Obi-Wan, "I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." Now, at the end of Part 3, Vader has given a whooping to Kenobi, and I was allowed, as I processed, watched that episode multiple times, that battle like 6 or 7 times after that episode.
a great battle.
I came to the resolution that
it really
Kenobi
a battle?
wasn't really fighting back, that he was resisting, he was trying to he was off his game because of knowing that Anakin was alive, seeing Vader doing the horrific things that he did in that village and all that. It threw him off, and so I gave Kenobi a pass on that, but I wanted a big confrontation between the two to make that quote make sense. All right. So this quote has been a point of great concern and frustration for a lot of us Star Wars fans since the end of Part 3 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Those that maybe are a little bit more wise and more at one with the Force, like you, BB Nate, have been encouraging patience as we wait for the conclusion of the entire story being told. BB Nate, why do you think this one quote has been such a sticking point for so many of us?
Well, I think it is warranted, the worries for it, but I think that a lot of people, just like with, and not even in this, just judging the show itself, judge it too early. I've heard a lot of people that said, okay, this most recent episode changed my mind on what I thought of the series. It's great now. And so I think that people were just, like Star Wars fans do, immediately jumping to that it's not going to be resolved and it's breaking canon, but they had this figured out. They knew what was going to happen, and we did see in the most recent episode how that was going to be resolved. There's a lot we don't know. There is a ton that we have to still figure out. We don't know everything about Star Wars. We aren't the ones creating the story. We just got to wait a little bit. So I think why people were so sticking so much to the quote was because they knew that, and they thought that the stuff that we've already ingested, no matter what's coming out in next week, is what's breaking the canon. So yes, at one point canon was broken, but it was fixed next week. So
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very important quote. There's a lot of weight to it. It's not a throwaway line. It's the first thing Vader says to Obi-Wan after seeing him for 9 years.
It is a critical moment in their story.
It is a rightful sticking point, I think. And I think we were, fans were right to be concerned with how they were going to address it. Now, I was never worried that it was not going to be addressed. I knew that the writers and producers and all of that had this in mind when they were making the series. There was no way they couldn't. As to how they were going to resolve it, obviously none of us really knew. But I think that they knew what was going on, and I think that's all right. But I think fans were warranted in being concerned with how they were going to handle it.
Okay. Part 5 of Obi Wan Kenobi, this episode that just came out. Initial reaction just on the episode, like one sentence or one word even. What'd you think?
I thought it was really good. I thought that the ending kind of summed things up and created a good setup for the finale.
I know there's about one thing that all Star Wars fans can agree on, and that's that Vader's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So. All right. Well, it begins with the Attack of the Clones era Anakin in a training session with Obi-Wan, and these flashbacks actually continue throughout the entire episode. And it kind of seems that both Darth Vader and Ben are thinking about this same moment throughout the events that we're seeing. So, Sam, first, what was your reaction when this episode opened and we saw Anakin on Coruscant?
I was really, really surprised. I don't think anybody saw anything like this coming. I know I didn't, at least. But it was, it's like the quote from Palpatine, surprised to be sure, but a welcome one, I loved that they threw this in there. And it kind of helped justify why they brought Hayden back. I mean, I was glad he was back at all, but now that we actually get to see his face and him as Anakin again, it was cool. But it was kind of heartbreaking, because we have the full story, and it's also been decades, or not decades, but it's been a while.
20 years.
Yeah, been a long time since Attack of the Clones. So it was cool to see the two back in that side of things.
Yeah, it was great seeing Hayden back as Anakin, and even though he looked a little older, it didn't really take me out of anything. I thought
you've seen the 40-year-old Padawan.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he looks old, but you just tell yourself, okay, sure, like that's just how it is.
Exactly.
Move on,
But I really liked it. I didn't expect it, but I was just super excited to see it, and it was probably the best part of the episode, the flashback sequences, I'd say.
Okay. So now as we watch this training duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan playing itself out, it's actually seems to be mirroring the events of this episode itself. So Obi-Wan seems to be bested by Anakin from the very start of this training duel. He's outmatched, and he ends up looking like his defeat is inevitable, which is very much what seems to happen to I'm just going to use, so we have our timelines correct, Vader and Ben. Okay. On that. So what are some of the parallels that stood out to you, Nate?
I think that the parallels in this episode, that it was kind of following the same path. But if we go back to even in the fight between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin in the flashbacks, and the fight between Vader and Ben in part 3, he even uses some of the same moves, like getting Ben on his knees and starting beating down on his saber. It's the exact same position as we were in. And also we see one of the moves from episode 3 in their duel, the spinning, the spinning lightsabers. I thought that was cool too. So the parallels of the fights was very similar. A mixture between Vader and Anakin was being used at that point. So kind of a transition into him becoming Vader was being shown already there. And so that was really cool with that choreography. Just a little hints here and there, but I thought that was really awesome. But it was a very, very good part of this episode.
It kind of feels like a chess match almost, in that the events of the duel itself were mirroring, like, you could mirror other fights, but they were mirroring larger events as well throughout the episode, which is what you're pointing out. But it's kind of cool how Obi-Wan, he knows that this is still Anakin. He's gonna play and fight the same way that Anakin does. It's the same story.
Do you think he's thought about that for 10 years? Do you think he sat there in that cave on Tatooine and thought about all of those moments with Anakin and seeing that's when I should have seen this happening, or I should have seen that dark side part of Anakin here, and I should have seen it here, and I should have seen it there. And so he's living it out that way a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think he's had time to prepare for the situation and think about, what his brother Anakin would do at this point, because that's who this is. But I thought it was also just really great storytelling too, how they're able to show us what's happening and how, he hasn't changed. One thing that I've been thinking throughout this episode, I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but there are about two villains that are fixated on Obi-Wan. You've got Vader and you've got Maul. And at this point in the story, neither one of them have changed very much.
Yeah,
Maul
we're definitely going to talk about this.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll leave that for what you're going to talk about. But it's interesting to see that Vader had not progressed or changed any since Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, definitely. That's a central part. That's like the dad moment element of this episode. The climax of the battle takes place when Darth Vader kind of goes all Star Killer on the refugee transport, pulls it down to the ground, rips it open, and then he finds that it's empty. He's been outsmarted by Ben, and it's at this moment that we hear Obi Wan Kenobi telling his apprentice, "You're a great warrior, Anakin, but your need to prove yourself is your undoing. Until you overcome it, a Padawan you will still be."
Some Yoda speak there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny because it tried to correct me on my grammar when I did it. So I was like, that's very Yoda. Okay. Sam, how does this change the way you see that famous moment that we've been talking about in episode 4?
Yeah. I kind of, again, going back to what I was saying a second ago, the reason why Kenobi defeated Maul in the Twin Sons episode is because Maul was the same as he was in Phantom Menace. He was predictable, and Obi-Wan knew exactly how to defeat him. And the same with what happened in this episode in a way. Vader was predictable, and Kenobi was able to exploit that. What happens in the next 9 years leading up to episode 4 is Vader matures in a way. It's still Vader, still Anakin, but he's moved on from this sort of immature, vengeful spirit that he has. In this, he is it's much more Maul-esque. He's fixated on Kenobi and just killing and defeating
It's
Kenobi.
revenge.
It's revenge. But in episode 4, it's more of a I've learned, and now I can. It's less proving himself and more finally confronting what he thinks is his true enemy at this point. So I think that's what it comes down to, is he's moved on from this immature, vengeful spirit and has actually tried to better himself and learn.
Yeah, I mean, it was like what Sam said, he just matured. Vader grew in kind of the wrong way towards more the dark side, but I even think in some ways he just learned how to control his rage even more. We did see that in the Darth Vader comic series by Charles Soule, that he learned how to control the dark side even more than, say, Palpatine was.
I think
able
that
to,
takes place before this series.
It does.
Well, still, I'm just saying that he's learning, and he was learning how to do that more because he didn't have Kenobi to have revenge against in that comic series. So I think that was the main part of it. So.
I think you guys are both right, but I also think that the reality is Obi Wan Kenobi, or Ben Kenobi in episode 4, is still the master. Anakin or Vader thinks Vader thinks that he's the master in that, just like he thinks he's the master in this moment. And the reality is the only one of them that has continued to grow stronger in the Force, that has continued to mature into the Force between Revenge of the Sith all the way to A New Hope, is Obi-Wan.
Right.
And
while he may have lost the battle,
Vader thinks he's defeating Ben Kenobi in episode 4. Ben Kenobi becomes one with the Force, and we see Vader, stomping on the empty robe, realizing he just did it again.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just like he does in the flashback sequence between all the way back at Coruscant in this episode, just like he does in this episode. That's the same thing that's playing out on this. Vader's defeat by Ben, that's exactly what happens in part 5.
100%.
Ben beats Vader.
Oh, yeah. Just not in a lightsaber duel.
Exactly. Is followed by the revelation that Vader has always known that Reva is the youngling he apparently ran through with his lightsaber during Order 66, and that he's been setting her up this entire time. And then this is followed by the reemergence of the true Grand Inquisitor, and Reva's receiving from Vader the same thing that she gave to the Grand Inquisitor, the lightsaber through the stomach. Anyway, Nate, did Reva survive this twice? And if so, does it weaken the impact of Qui-Gon Jinn and Han Solo's death?
No, like the Star Wars Explained video, it just has to deal with rage. And if Reva did survive this again, which in some ways I hope she doesn't, I think that killing her off in soon enough would be the best way for her character arc to end. And not that I don't like the character, I'm just saying that I feels like it would have less impact of what Vader did if she survived it twice. But of Qui-Gon and Han Solo's death, no, I don't think it changes that, because Han Solo fell, and like what Alex said, Qui-Gon just understood that there is...
He actually defeated death by becoming one with the Force.
Exactly. So he went to a better part of the Force.
Yeah. That was a great video.
It was a great video.
Exactly. Yeah. I think Nathan nailed all of it right on the head. I mean, the reason why Maul survived was single-minded rage and revenge. Same with Reva.
And trash.
And trash. Yeah. And even Vader. That's what kept him alive. Qui-Gon doesn't have that. And we know now that at the time he had been training to become one with the Force and have that like eternal life in a way, while the Sith were still trying to figure it out. So they had to cling to this life in a way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I don't think it cheapens it by any means.
Well, let's talk about Reva again, because this episode begins with a really big moment. When you watch this, we saw it again last night. We watched it again. Reva's still alive. And at this point, she knows now that Luke is on Tatooine. And it kind of seems to be implied that she's put 2 and 2 together and gets that Luke and Leia are Anakin's children. Did you guys get that idea from this?
Maybe.
She knows something is up.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but I don't think she's put all that together yet.
Well, I think if nothing else, she knows Obi-Wan is protecting Luke.
Yes. Or some kid. I don't think he ever even says Luke. Okay. He just says the boy.
Well, my concern is I think she's headed to Tatooine. I think she's surviving this, and I think she's headed to Tatooine to exact her revenge, and I think she's going to go after... If she does know it's Luke is Anakin's child, she's going after Anakin by killing Luke in this. Where do you think this is headed in the finale?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, we all want a final confrontation between Obi-Wan and Vader. That's what they've been promising. We want a crazy fight.
Getting it.
We want a crazy fight between Obi-Wan and Vader. But I feel like if you send Reva to Tatooine, it ends up being a final confrontation between Reva and Obi-Wan. Mm-hmm. And as cool as that would be, that's just not at all what we were wanting or expecting. No. Maybe, we should go over headcanon and stuff and get over ourselves. But I think, we've been kind of wanting one thing, and they've been saying things to imply
Even
that.
this week, Hayden Christensen kind of implied that. And
ready for the rematch is literally what he said next week. We're expecting it.
So I feel like if you throw that in there, it I don't know how they'll have both in the episode. Either they'll have to wrap up that storyline real quick, or she passes the information on to someone else, but who would she pass it on to? So I don't know.
It's not like Vader can show up on Tatooine and have the fight there, because if that happens, then Obi-Wan, then he would know. So that can't happen. So
yeah, I don't know where they're going to go with this.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously they probably have a plan because they've fixed everything else so far. So
I agree. I think that they're going to figure this out, and we're going to have that good rematch between Kenobi and Vader in one way or another in the next episode. But I'm not sure what Reva is going to do. I'm not sure if she's going to have a redemption arc maybe, or what is going to happen, since she's never really been for the dark side. She's just been against Anakin in ways. But I'm
she's done some pretty dark side.
She's done some dark stuff.
She cut some
only because of the
hand
revenge.
off in the first episode.
This is true.
So.
Yeah, I could see Reva going and with the intention of killing Luke, and then just realizing
how messed up she is.
Like,
but she was about to turn into Anakin.
Turning into Anakin.
Yeah, that's what I'm
a
thinking
child.
is going to happen.
And that could be a redemption arc for her. And I could already see the Twitter sphere exploding and the, people not liking that. But I think it would be a great end to her character.
Like it. I'm the redemption arc.
It. And then meanwhile, you've got Obi-Wan and Vader or Ben and Vader having some kind of a confrontation somewhere else as the pursuit is going on, which we learn that in the end of that. All right. Well, I think it's a good time for a dad moment.
I am your father.
And of course, we have Vader introducing it.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a really important theme throughout Part 5. Sam talked about it a lot on this. It really ties into the next chapter in Ben Kenobi's story, which is his final confrontation with Maul in season 3 of Star Wars Rebels, the episode Twin Sons that we absolutely love.
Best episode of the series.
Absolutely. After revealing himself again to Reva, the Grand Inquisitor asks her, "Revenge does wonders for the will to live, don't you think?" We know that Maul survives Kenobi's slicing and dicing in The Phantom Menace because of his hatred for Obi-Wan, and we see that play out throughout all of the animated shows. And now we learn that Reva's only lust for revenge is what kept her alive after Order 66, and the Grand Inquisitor's desire for revenge against Reva is what kept him alive.
There's just a lot of revenge going on here.
Which is the perfect illustration of the power of the dark side. It seems to be sustaining life, but the life that it gives isn't a real life. The power of old Ben's story in Rebels is that he's moved beyond any thoughts of revenge against Maul, which he has as much right to want revenge against Maul as Maul wants against him. He killed Qui-Gon. He killed Satine. All of these things that have gone on. But at the same time, all that's going on, Maul is still metaphorically stuck on Naboo.
Right.
And that's why when you see that confrontation between the two, Obi-Wan is fully prepared for every move because he's setting up Maul, knowing Maul is the same Maul as Naboo on this. And then in this, even Vader's desire for revenge against Obi-Wan has shown that he's stuck as the Padawan to Kenobi's master.
Right.
In this. Revenge is deceptive. It may seem to give power, but the power it gives truly destroys the one consumed by that hatred on that. So, all right. Well, I don't believe it's necessary for the story to have Ben battle Vader again in Obi Wan Kenobi, but I still think it's going to happen. I think we're going to get that confrontation. But the bigger question is how this all plays itself out on Tatooine, which is, I think, is going to be important. One thing we know is Luke will survive. But what's going to happen to Reva? That's the big question. So, all righty.
Good segment.
Let's move on. Thank you, guys. Let's talk a little bit more movie moments.
No, bad news is next.
Oh, it's I always do that. I want to go to movie moments. It's bad news. Sometimes a clickbait headline is so ridiculously absurd that it deserves to take over the entire bad news segment. Congratulations to Decider.com for writing one this past week that might be the craziest Star Wars headline that we've ever read.
Well, you want the bad news or the really bad news?
All right, here's the headline. You're waiting for it. Here it comes.
Oh, yeah.
Will Obi Wan Kenobi kill young Luke Skywalker in the finale?
Does that mean like the show or the character?
Huh?
Like, will the show kill off Luke Skywalker or will Obi-Wan himself?
That's a show.
I think it's in either way. It's a ridiculous headline.
No, it's obviously ridiculous.
Exactly. In every instance, a clickbait headline is intended to trick the reader or the viewer or the listener, if it's a podcast like ours, into engaging in a piece of content that they may have previously ignored. And it's almost always about generating engagement for an online source in order to help create exposure and help the internet algorithms do whatever it is that they do. And every week we call out the worst of these sites for doing this because in just about every case, they're creating a headline that is an outright deception with an article that is either misleading or pointless. Not this week, though. Actually, it's a brilliant move of satire by Decider.com. And they use this. Basically, they're using absurdity to illustrate the absurd. And in doing so, they speak a Jedi level lesson to Star Wars fans that even Master Yoda would be proud of. By grabbing the reader with an insane idea that Obi-Wan Kenobi could kill Luke Skywalker in the finale of the series tomorrow, an idea that every Star Wars fan realizes is absolutely ridiculous. The author, Alex Zalbin, earns the opportunity to talk about letting the writer writers of our favorite franchises tell their stories before we jump to conclusions. He actually suggests insane theories in this, like everything we've ever known about Star Wars could just be a dream that Kenobi is having after Luke dies. He also suggests that Luke Skywalker that we've come to know and love actually is just two Jawas stacked on top of each other, pretending to be the future Jedi Master. Zalben does this, and he tricks the reader into thinking this is crazy. Everyone knows that this can't be what happened. And that's the moment that he earns the right to speak the words that Obi Wan Kenobi first uttered to Luke 45 years ago. Trust your feelings, patience. We know that people behind the series love Star Wars as much as we do. They know that Darth Vader claims that the last time he squared off with Obi Wan Kenobi, Obi-Wan was the master. They also know that the Grand Inquisitor is alive and well to chase Ezra Bridger and Kanan Jarrus around the galaxy in Star Wars Rebels. Our part in these stories isn't to question every move in the story while the story is still being told. It's to trust that the story will play out in a beautiful and coherent way. Yes, this headline is clickbait. It is big time clickbait, but it's the best kind. So I'm going to give it a clickbait level 10 and that's
a compliment.
I tweeted Alex Zalben and said, thank you for that article. It was brilliant. So
good.
Anyway,
welcome change.
It really was. Absolutely. All right, BB Nate. Samuel Hutt. Thanks for doing this one.
Off.
Hey man, it's a weird time to record anyway. So
that's a good point.
All right, go for it, Sam.
Yeah, with Stranger Things 4 Part 2, not far away, but not close enough if you ask me. We decided we're going to take a look back at Stranger Things 1 through 3 to see if we can't make some predictions about Part 2, specifically about who the big bad evil guy is. We'll discuss it all next.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then, keep your secrets. You're coming to us. Yes, as the footsteps of stairs.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
It's like, the three Spider-Man pointing at each other, but it was like Vecna, O1, and Henry Creel all pointing at each other, because it's like all the same person. So I sent it to Nathan, and I sent it to Savannah, and I was on the phone with Savannah, and she, not a minute later, goes, "Oh no!" I'm like, "What?" She's like, "I sent it to my brother." The other
he hasn't seen it yet.
He hadn't seen it, and she feels horrible. But then we're talking
as bad as Stuart texting me on Wednesday afternoon, and he was being like, "Dude," and he starts talking about all the stuff with Obi-Wan, and we hadn't watched the episode yet.
Yeah, of course she felt horrible, but then we were thinking about it, and we're like, "It's been over 3 weeks since this series came out." I mean, at that point, it's kind of your own fault.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, let's do this.
Let's take a look back. So I did switch it up a little bit in the process of writing this. I couldn't quite find what I was looking for, but I found some other interesting things, mainly an article from Screen Rant, which was super helpful.
So you basically stole everything from them?
Yeah.
That's okay. They stole everything for an article last week from our podcast episode.
It's true. So we're even.
I'm just kidding. We love you, Screen Rant. We love you.
But, it was interesting. And with some conversations we had over this weekend with some kids in the youth, it got me thinking. I want to talk about, have we seen Vecna throughout Stranger Things at this point, and is he the real bad guy? So one thing that I want to talk about is the Duffer Brothers have planned this story from day one. When they went to Netflix to pitch this idea of a series, Netflix gave them the okay, but they wanted them to write out the whole thing to be safe. What they delivered was a 25-page mythology.
I would love to read that.
I would too. Laying out the whole overarching story to Netflix, but they kept Vecna's story really close to the chest to, not spoil the surprise because they loved it. But this story has been on their mind since day one, over 6 years ago. Nate, do you really believe that they had this exact story in mind this whole time, or was it more of just like a general idea they had?
I don't think exact like how it went out, but I do think that they had the overall outline laid out. I think they expected Vecna to be who he was since the beginning, and I think that they knew that, and they're going to put little hints throughout the series, and then finally reveal it in this final season, which again is so amazing that in 2014 you can make an original IP and it become this popular and be so
one of the biggest
so
TV
big.
shows, I think, of all time.
Yeah, it's crazy, and they're geniuses to come up with this and keep it so close to their chest and have
not compromise
and have a satisfying execution at the end and reveal. I think it was really well done.
I am curious as to whether or not this 25-page mythology is akin to the Adventures of Luke Starkiller, like the original script for Star Wars that took multiple iterations and changed a lot and stuff. I would be interested to read it and see how much of it is the same.
I hope after this series finishes up, they post
that. Would be really
it. That would be
really cool.
Dad, knowing that they had this plan from the start, do you think it was executed well so far in Stranger Things 4, or could it have been done a little differently in your opinion?
In Stranger Things 4?
Yes. Yeah. What they like the reveal and all of that with.
Do you think it was executed well, or could they have done it differently?
Since it's been
the whole series or just the season?
I guess the reveal of everything.
That's a great question, because I wasn't the big revelation for me that it was for you guys. And so I think that they could have done more to show me those connections. When you're watching a series, it's not, it's not a 4-season TV series where it's 2022. So you watch a season in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and now 2022. And you have a chance to watch it close together. I mean, this is going back even further than that. And so, and it's this weird Netflix phenomenon where you're binging whole seasons at once. So there's a whole year in between or more between seasons.
Like 3.
It makes it harder to remember those connections. You don't have a chance to talk them through, and like we do on this kind of stuff. So I think that's the only part of the execution that I think is still struggling is the fact that you don't have that chance.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you'd mentioned that if we don't have the opportunity to really remember things that have happened previously. But in this article, they actually mention a few points that could point towards Vecna. And we even, over this weekend with the youth, talked about a few of these points as well. And so it's pretty interesting. There are about 3 moments, one in each season, actually, that really seem to allude to Vecna. The first one is in season 1, episode 1. So right from the start, the vanishing of Will Byers. When he's riding down the road in his bike in the dark, comes across this figure in the middle of the road. We're led to believe it's the Demogorgon that escaped from the lab, but it's always shrouded. We never actually really see it. Okay. And when he falls off his bike, there's a sound that plays that's pretty similar to the clock sound.
Interesting.
As he's being chased through the woods, he gets to his house. He puts that little slide lock on the door or whatever, with the chain, and is running around. And this figure comes up to the door. Never really see it, but all of a sudden that door lock from the inside unlocks itself and falls down. We've never seen a Demogorgon do anything similar to this at any other point in the series. At that point, and that's a very telekinetic kind of power, and again, we never actually see a good look.
And you're implying that Vecna is
this could be Vecna. Okay. Yes, we never actually really see the figure. Then in season 2, episode 4, Hopper finds these tunnels that the Mind Flayer had been building underneath Hawkins, and when he enters it, right at the end, when it cuts to black for the episode, there's a sound that's even more reminiscent of the clock chime.
Okay.
I actually pulled up the clip on my phone when I was researching this, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty unrecognizable.
Cool. That's cool.
And then this one is real close, but in season 3, episode 2, Billy, he's pulled into the Upside Down by the Mind Flayer, and he goes into this phone booth and he's trying to call 911. And at that point, we hear 4 chimes ring out that are even more reminiscent of the sound.
So it's the further into the series you get, the more clear the clock becomes.
Yes. Yeah. So it had been, throughout the series a bit, but you got to really look for it. Nate, I want you to call it here. Make your prediction. Has Vecna been pulling the strings this whole time?
100%. I think I called that after season 4 ended. I think that I think I called that since before the season 4 even came out. I thought Vecna has been the big bad the whole time, pulling the strings and just trying to become more powerful due to his psychic powers, which we found out that he grows power after training them, and basically kind of like working out. Like Mark from Invincible, he has to work out his brain
by killing
killing teenagers, because that's one way to do it. But I feel like he's just been kind of making everything happen. Why he uses Demogorgons or how he uses Demogorgons and Mind Flayers is something we don't know yet. But we also have 4 more hours of content to get that answer coming out, so I'm sure we'll learn that.
Yeah, Dad. Do you like the idea that Vecna could have been the big baddie of this series the whole time? And you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but if so, would you want them to better explain how this is the case? And like you said, Nate, like why is he doing these things the way he does in the next 2 episodes?
Well, you absolutely don't want to have a season 4 that's supposed to be the climax and the end of this entire series, and then have Vecna be the general underneath one of the other bad guys, which is what it was implied early on in this, wasn't it?
Yeah, by Dustin.
He thought the Mind Flayer was
the big bad guy. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
which, I mean, you would, because it was a big bad for the past 2 seasons.
But you don't want that to be the case. If they're going to have this happen here, you want him to be the emperor of this story, right? The bad guy behind the scenes has been doing this the whole time, and he's coming out and doing this. Mm-hmm. But having said that, I want flashbacks. I want some reconnections. I want to see things happen in these next 4 hours, which is awesome, by the way.
That is awesome.
It's great.
To allow you to have that satisfaction of not feeling like, I really wish I would have gone back and watched seasons 1 through 3 again right before watching this.
Mm-hmm.
Reward the ones that have watched it over the history of the show by letting them get those callbacks that help them remember things in it without having to have watched all of those episodes all over again.
Yeah. Like you both mentioned, Dustin calls Vecna like the 5-star general to the Mind Flayer. Nate, you seem to say that you don't think this is the case. No. So is the Mind Flayer just another henchman for Vecna?
I think so. And you can't blame Dustin or any of them for thinking that the Mind Flayer was the big bad.
I mean, they don't know.
It was giant. It was scary. It was tormenting them for 2 years. You would expect it to be the big bad guy, and this was just another henchman of that big bad. It makes sense for these teenagers to think that. It's honestly great writing for them to do that, and we know otherwise. And so I feel like it's great that they're doing that. I don't think that Vecna is under the Mind Flayer, just because that wouldn't make sense of why everything would be happening. Now that we know that Vecna was kind of put into the upside down by El, it makes sense why he was hunting El and trying to get more powerful. So I think that it just, everything's kind of starting to make more and more sense.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to try and explain this as best I can, but I heard this theory from like New Rock Stars about like the Mind Flayer and Vecna, and I'm going to try and explain it to the best of my recollection. But basically they think like neither one of them are really the big bad guy, and what's going to happen here is they're going to like kind of come together. They explain like that there's these vines that are all throughout the upside down.
Yeah,
where do they lead to? Mm-hmm. What are they connected to? Well, they think they're connected to this thing. There again, they used D&D terms to explain it and use a D&D character to explain it. It's called the Elder Brain or something like that, and it's like where these Mind Flayers and liches, like they're connected to this hive mind, and they can become this brain. So they think that what's going to happen is Vecna and the Mind Flayer are going to like come together and go to the Elder Brain, and that's what's kind of created and controls the entire upside down. That's where there's these vines everywhere. That's what gives Vecna those power, because every time he kills somebody, like in their mind, he has to be connected, like plugged in basically with those vines. So that's kind of what they're suggesting will happen.
Surprise me.
Do you like this idea? Do you think they'll go there? Do you even think they'd have time to go there in these 2 episodes? Basically introduce a whole nother overarching villain in a way.
Yeah, I definitely think that they'd have time. I mean, if you think about the fact that this 4 hours, this is like longer than Endgame.
It's as long as the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, it's as long as the Snyder Cut. There's a lot of content left to do here.
And think about and just real quick to expand on that. If you think about it, episodes 1 and 2 of this season were a lot of setup, but a lot happened in 4 episodes for this season 4, leading up to episode 7. So much happened, and that's what we're getting in the next 2 episodes. All of that amount of content. So
yeah, I think that they have time to do it, and I would like the idea, because I think that the one piece of the Vecna one story that I don't understand is where did he get his power? And so if there's this other entity that's even greater behind the scenes that is giving the power to that and tying it in, then that helps explain that, which I mean, again, then, you know, it's this never ending thread you keep pulling on where that creature get it, but hopefully they can explain those powers.
Right. Yeah.
To us.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, it's sad that Stranger Things is coming to an end, like all good things do. But I know that we're all very excited to see how this amazing story comes to a close. So make sure to binge the last 2 episodes as soon as they come out on July 1st. I know Tristan and I are going to be staying up very late.
I'll figure it out.
Good job.
Thank you.
Hey, good job segment. I know we threw that at you fast today. So is now the time we can talk about movies?
Yes.
We haven't been talking about any movies.
No.
Up to this point. We've been talking about TV shows.
That's a good point.
Have you thought about that? Not even TV shows, really.
And we're going to be talking about more TV shows after this and movies-ish.
Interesting.
Yes.
The box office numbers are in from last weekend, and the surprising results could have results.
Results.
The surprising results could have major implications on a legacy Disney franchise. Yikes. That's next on Movie Moments.
At last, we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last, we will have revenge.
Oh, 2 new releases this week. The first one is The Black Phone. It is about Finney Shaw, a shy but clever 13-year-old boy, is abducted by a sadistic killer and trapped in a soundproof basement where screaming is of little use.
I'm out.
When a disconnected phone on the wall begins to ring, Finney discovers that he can hear the voices of the killer's previous victims.
Oh my gosh.
And they are dead set on making sure that what happened to them doesn't happen to Finney.
I don't think so.
The director is Scott Derrickson, who, great director, did Doctor Strange.
Really?
Good one. Cast is Ethan Hawke, Mason Thames, and Madeline McGraw. Yes, the dude from Arthur Harrow.
Yeah.
And the studio is Universal and is rated R for violence, bloody images, language, and some drug use. Going yes or no?
It's a very interesting idea.
It is really interesting, but I don't think I'd be able to handle that.
I watched the trailer and to see like what it was going to be like, and it doesn't seem insanely terrifying, more of a thriller than anything, but it also seems to take a lot from his past movies he did, which is what got him to do Doctor Strange. Sinister, it honestly looked like the same plot, which I read the plot, and those are terrifying, considered the most scary movies in the past decade, so who knows. But this next one
probably not going
is actually quite interesting. Elvis, Baz Luhrmann's Elvis, explores the life and music of Elvis Presley.
I've heard of that guy.
Wow, strange. An Elvis movie titled
Not Elvis
follows
Costello.
Elvis Presley.
Elvis Costello is an amazing singer in his own right.
Okay, well, that's good. Seen through the prism of his complicated relationship with his enigmatic manager, Colonel Tom Parker. The story delves into the complex dynamic between Presley and Parker, spanning over 20 years, from Presley's rise to fame to his unprecedented stardom, against the backdrop of the evolving cultural landscape and loss of innocence in America. Central to that journey is one of the most significant and influential people in Elvis's life, Priscilla Presley. The director is Baz Luhrmann, and the cast is Austin Butler and Tom Hanks. Studio is Warner Brothers. It is rated PG-13 for substance abuse, strong language, suggestive material, and smoking. Going yes or no?
I think so.
I think it sounds like the previews of the trailers have looked.
Yeah, I'll watch it. Yeah,
trailers have looked good.
Fun fact: his manager actually made "I Hate Elvis" buttons to make profit off of the people who didn't like Elvis.
Right, which
that's genius.
Well, anyway, yeah, there's a lot of money to be made in being a negative by hating things. So some people figure that out. So.
For trailers this week, The Munsters by Rob Zombie.
Isn't this just like the Addams Family?
It's
kind
similar.
of. It's like it was like a parallel show at the time.
Weird.
But I'm very confused by this movie. First of all, I'm mainly confused how Rob Zombie's doing a PG movie, a family movie.
Wait,
which is
PG?
It's PG.
Yep.
Which is automatically surprising. Second of all, The Munsters didn't seem like that big of a deal for Universal to be like, let's make a movie off of them. It was kind of a 60s show that only lasted like 70 episodes.
Yeah.
Which is a good amount.
It'll be curious to see.
Yeah. And for the big deal this week, box office results, Jurassic World Dominion. Surprisingly, still 58 million. That is really good. 622 million total worldwide. Lightyear. 51 million domestic for its opening weekend and 85 million worldwide of total. That is a terrible opening, even worldwide.
For a Pixar movie.
It didn't even cross 100 million, which I don't even think that happened to Morbius. I think Morbius crossed 100 million worldwide.
I think so. Yeah.
That is terrible. And Top Gun Maverick in its fourth weekend made 44 million domestic.
That's at 885.
Almost meeting Lightyear's opening weekend. And 185 million total worldwide, which is solid. And I don't think it'll cross $1 billion, but it'll get darn close.
It's where's Doctor Strange? It's 900 something million.
Yes, I don't think that one's going to cross, but I think that Top Gun Maverick will get close, like Doctor Strange.
Okay,
but yeah, wow.
All right,
sorry, Lightyear. That's sad, but
that's surprising.
Yeah, very surprising. But I guess it's back to me.
It is back to you.
It's back to me.
I'm really curious about this topic.
So. I went all over the board with this topic, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's good because it's about the Flash, and so it's a DC thing, so you can go all over the board. So
Ezra Miller is making a mess. So since he's not going to be the Flash anymore, we have to discuss who will be, and there is a front runner for him in my mind right now.
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
That man has no limits.
So Dark Crisis, real quick before we get into the Flash. How's the opening to that series?
It was really good.
Comic series.
Really good.
Is it a monthly series?
It is monthly.
So yeah,
but they also have a ton of tie-ins.
Okay.
So the problem with big events is all the tie-ins make the series better, and I want to get all the tie-ins, but it's hard to get to the comic store.
Yeah.
But that's
figure it out.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just jump right into this. So the Flash show has been running for years, and it's been met with mixed reviews over the seasons, but it's mainly positive from the positive side of fandom. But one of the highlights of the show that everyone can agree on is Grant Gustin's Flash.
I'll agree with that.
When the writing is good and the moments are right, he can be a really good Barry Allen in the Flash.
Barry Allen.
Yeah. So Dad, you do watch the Flash.
I do watch the Flash.
We're in season 5?
We're in season 5 now.
Yeah, it's not. Cicada's an okay villain. So, what do you think of Grant Gustin as the Flash?
He's become a much. I don't know if it's better writing or better acting, but Grant Gustin's Flash has been better the last several seasons. It's a couple seasons. So, the interactions he's got with there are some moments. Where when he interacts with Iris, when he interacts with Joe, that are really, really
I think the
good.
best ones are
Tom
Harrison,
any character Tom Cavanaugh plays,
or any
a character that are fantastic. So. I like Grant Gustin, and I think he's done a fantastic job.
And funny thing, you have a very unpopular opinion in that stage. I honestly think that the show has gotten better over the seasons, but people think that it reached its peak at season 2 and has been on the downhill ever since then. And I honestly thought that
season 2 is the weakest of the two.
Exactly, I thought season 4 has been the best so far. That was The Thinker and all that. I thought it was really good. But Sam, you haven't seen the Flash show, but you've been exposed to his version before from Savannah and Us. What do you think of him from just being a outside looking in kind of person?
It's kind of it's tough to say. I mean, I haven't seen him enough as like his character to know. I've seen him just running around and
well, it's just bad CWCGI.
And the CGI really throws me off. I'm like, man, that would not be like, I don't want to watch that for very long. As for him as an actor and him playing Barry Allen and stuff, I really can't speak into it. But I mean, I know you guys, and you're quite critical about CW shows, so you giving him praise.
We're critical of this show.
we are critical of this show, but we enjoy it.
And you guys giving him praise at this point is enough to tell me that he's got something.
Okay.
So I think he definitely could be good. Yeah.
Now, Ezra Miller was and kind of is the Flash in the movie universe for DC as of now. And from what we've seen, he is pretty good. Sam, what did you think of him in the Snyder Cut? Since you have not been exposed to the 2017 Justice League version, even though I promised we would watch that as soon as you can, which is probably a mistake on my part. But what do you think of him in the Snyder Cut?
You see, I actually really liked his Flash.
I did too.
And that's why it's so... I don't want to say disappointing, but like that's not
I'm not
a
angry,
strong
I'm just
enough
disappointed.
word. It's not a strong enough word, but it's disappointing to see Ezra Miller's behavior because, I mean, for selfish reasons, I wanted him to keep playing the Flash.
Same.
I thought he was a great Flash. He was fun. He had the kid element to it. Kind of felt like Peter Parker a little bit. But just even his powers and his version of the Flash, I thought was really good. So, yeah.
Dad, what'd you think of him?
I loved him. I thought he was the best part of the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
I thought he was a great character.
And the ending was fantastic in the Snyder Cut. And then when you interviewed Michael Uslan about Batman, and then we talked about Batman and Michael Keaton's Batman in this, he seems to be super excited about this movie too. So I've been very excited about the Flash.
I'm very excited about the Flash, and I'm excited that Ezra Miller will be still playing him in the Flash. They aren't cutting him out. They aren't not releasing the movie. They're still releasing it. But as of now, at least from Deadline, the Warner Brothers said they don't have any plans on asking Ezra Miller back after the Flash. So it's up in the air whether or not he's going to, but most likely not. They said that they're hoping that all of the drama will lay low till the Flash comes out, which it won't. It's already exploded. But Grant Gustin has actually been rumored to be in the Flash movie for months.
Really?
Now it seems like he needs to be. Yes, he's been rumored a lot. Now, how he could be in this movie is not hard to do. It's deciding how it happens that will be the challenging part. First one, the most obvious, is through the multiverse. It's most likely in the easiest way. But the next one is the more interesting one, through the Speed Force. This is the most...
Sam has no idea what we're talking about, really, does
he? I kind of vaguely know.
Okay.
Now, this is the most difficult to explain and achieve, and it just very well could not happen in the time that they have for the Flash, but it could be through a Flashpoint scenario. This would have to be set up in the TV show, and it makes sense since the TV show is ending next year in its final 9th season, unless they just make this new Flash a different character just with Grant Gustin playing him.
I don't think they'll do that.
But Dad, out of these options, which would you like to see if Grant Gustin as the new
So explain to me the Speed Force theory.
The Speed Force theory. The Speed Force is a force that is just time.
Well, I know
time
what that
goes
is
throughout any
but
multiverse.
How does that tie him? Bring him into this?
The Flashpoint is when he goes into another Flashpoint. He goes into another Earth. That's what happens in the Flashpoint paradox. He goes to Earth 3, which is the new timeline that is created with Thomas Wayne and all that stuff. And even
how is that different from the multiverse?
It's not different really from the multiverse. He's just able to access it through the Speed Force. The multiverse is also could be timelines and stuff as well. But since the main Earth is, say, let's just use the Flashpoint paradox as the main example right now. The main Earth is still going after Barry goes back in time to save his mother. That's still all happening. But he's already in this new timeline, in this new Earth that's dealing with, all the battle between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, and the whole world is going just gonna end. So that's what could happen here. Now, the one big problem with this is Barry Allen in the Flash TV show knows how bad Flashpoint scenarios could be, and traveling through the Speed Force
really interesting.
It would make it very interesting. Judging, I don't want to spoil the show. For you.
Don't. But there's here's what I'm going to tell you. If they're going to do this, then it has to be Flash centric. It can't be something that you could see in the MCU with the multiverse and all this other stuff. It has to be Flash driven. So if it's a Flashpoint scenario, I like that the best.
I think it could be. Yeah. That feels the most flashy. Okay. That was good. But Sam, you have, like we said, very little knowledge for a lot of the Flash stuff. Do you think this would be a good choice, making Grant Gustin the new movie Flash? Or do you think that they just find a new actor completely?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think it would be hard to do. We already know there's going to be other Flashes in this movie. Like there's even like a girl Flash, isn't there, or something like that?
No.
I don't know who I'm seeing then. But anyway, I'm trying to remember from the trailer. I don't even know if I've watched the trailer. Yeah, I haven't even watched the trailer then. But I don't think you make it a new actor. I think you bring in Grant Gustin. It's like all the talks about Daredevil and stuff in the MCU. People would have been very upset had they brought in someone other than Charlie Cox to play Daredevil. Now, granted, Daredevil is a very different caliber of show to the CW's Flash, but people like Charlie Cox as an actor and his version of the character. There are a lot of people who like Grant Gustin and his version of the Flash. So I think you bring him in, and since you guys say he's doing better, or maybe it's better writing, whatever the case may be, I think he would be a good replacement because I don't think they can continue with that.
If you're going to do it, you have to have him sing.
No,
you got to have him sing that song.
We don't have to have him sing.
That song is amazing.
It's fine. It's a good song.
It's a fantastic song. In fact, I'm going to listen to it as soon as we're done recording.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh Lord!
But the one thing that's the most that's pointing to this being the biggest possibility is actually the Supergirl in this Flash movie. Now she's a very special case because I'm not talking about it being different from the Supergirl TV show. I'm talking about how this Supergirl is in her universe.
Yeah.
Now this is the daughter of Superman. Not the same thing. Well, at least the name of her is the daughter of Superman, only created from a dream sequence in the Injustice comic series that had one half of an issue.
Gosh,
it's a very big, deep dive.
DCEU is so messed up right now.
It's an insanely... it's such a deep dive, but they could be going that direction, and it seems like they are going to. And honestly, it's one of the most.
It's not the same actress from the CW.
No, it's Sasha Cal. I think is, which the whole sequence is very heartbreaking in the Injustice comic series. It was if Bruce actually killed Joker himself and not Superman after Joker did all the stuff he did in the Injustice world, and then Batman actually turned himself in right after that, and so Superman actually married Wonder Woman, strangely enough, and they had Supergirl in this universe, which is going to be her, or at least her name is. So it's very, very weird and interesting how they're going to, turn this stuff with that. But I'm very excited to see how it's going to happen, and I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens with Ezra and the future of the Flash. But till then, the Flash will still be running on the CW till its finale in season 9.
Running.
You're terrible. They've made me stop doing dad jokes, and then they just do the dad jokes.
It was right there.
And it's Father's Day, like the day after Father's Day when we're recording this, and I'm not allowed to do dad jokes. I got criticized for my dad jokes yesterday.
I didn't criticize you.
You gave Nathan the segment. You just had to expect him to take and run with it.
Oh,
yeah.
Geez.
And we've already passed the finish line. So.
Oh, God. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
Yeah, Marvel's developing a Wonder Man series with Dustin Daniel Cretton and Andrew Guest.
Wow.
This is confirmed. This is legit. This is not a clickbait article or a rumor. We had to look up who this character is because we are not familiar with Wonder Man.
But there's a lot of connections to Wanda and Vision, which I think makes it a really interesting character on that.
Yep.
So.
You think that'll be like WandaVision season 2, basically?
I don't know. They're not doing a WandaVision season.
I know, but is Wonder Man going to be kind of
it's
like
possible.
that? It's probably like that. But Marvel
like
Boss...
how Book of Boba Fett was Mandalorian season
2.5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Marvel boss Kevin Feige reportedly had talks ahead of the DCEU, and that probably would have been the best.
And there's still rumors out there that he could come in and do this.
What if they did a Marvel DC crossover?
Those are some really good comic series when they did do that.
Could you imagine a movie?
I think Disney wouldn't let that happen.
I don't think
it'd be
so.
adding
So
credibility
cool,
to the
though.
DCEU.
I honestly think that now that they're doing a whole change in Warner Brothers heads and all this stuff, I'm pretty sure the new Kevin Feige of the DC is going to be Jim Lee.
I hope so. That would be awesome. Star Wars The Acolyte will draw inspiration from the extended universe, which is great. I hope so. I hope that it takes all the amazing moments that were in the extended universe
and leaves out the bad parts.
and leaves out the weird stuff, like a moon falling and killing Chewbacca. All right.
I'm sorry?
Like a moon crashing into a planet and killing Chewbacca. That's how Chewbacca
Wow. Okay.
yeah. All right. I guess that's enough of that. Thanks for listening. to Tatooine Sons. Thank you. Thanks you for listening to Tatooine
Thank you for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast.
Thank you, Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adrian.
All right. Anyway, thank you for listening.
You've said it like 4 times. Or good. If you had a good time listening, it would be awesome if you could share this with your friends.
Oh, man. And, of course, the show is only a small part of the Tatooine Sons world. So if you happen to like this craziness, be sure to like us on Facebook and join our Facebook discussion group. And follow us on Twitter to get in on all the action. And you can keep up to date with everything we've got going on at TatooineSons.com.
And thanks for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast.
Oh, no, you said that.
I did that.
We need a tally.
Don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss our next episode, which will come out next week. If we can figure out when we're going to record it. Please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever podcast app you prefer. We really do appreciate it when you give us those reviews, so please give us a review. Please. Anything else you guys would like to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Joy, please.
Yep, yep.